Welcome to the Jake Turner Podcast, where we share tools to win in life, health, and business. Nate Rose, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, brother?
Nate Rose is an independent hip-hop artist who's earned over 100 million independent streams with music featured in TV shows like Bel Air and brand placements like Nike, Adidas, and Vogue. He's also is it Dove or Dove? Dove Award and Stellar Award nominated producer and songwriter. As a video director, he co-owns a media company and has created work that's debuted on CMT, BET, and MTV. Known for blending philosophical depth with commercial hip-hop appeal, Nate brings a unique perspective to both his art and the stories behind it. Welcome to the podcast.
That was quite an introduction, brother. Thank you.
Well,
Made me sound way cooler than I am.
Well, I think you're not giving yourself as much credit.
I was gonna say, off that description, you might not picture a guy in a sleeveless shirt that says Coors on it. So,
well, people watch the video version, they're gonna get the
full picture,
the full picture.
That's
tea.
right.
First question.
All right.
What's the title of this chapter of your life right now?
Title of this chapter of my life. I feel like I'd be remiss to not say fatherhood. I got a 10.5-month-old, and he's awesome. Shout out Andros. Also shout out my wife. She created him. So I love her for that and other things. It probably have to be fatherhood. I mean, you kind of jump in. It's probably the most life-changing experience that can happen. It's sort of the quintessential life experience. And so by nature of that, like, there's so many adjustments that have had to have happened. And so like little things like adapting how I interact with my wife. Like we heard this from a lot of our friends, so it was nice that we kind of had this expectation going into it. But we were, before we had a kid, we were able to just hang out and do things on a whim and travel and without that kind of like the extra planning. And now that we have a new object of so much of our love and attention by necessity, we actually have to kind of come back to the table and be like, okay, we actually have to plan opportunities for intimacy and dates and things like that. And so that's been a challenge. And then also just like really kind of rethinking about everything in the context of a kid and what kind of world that he's going to step into and how to prepare him for the future. Really does something to your brain, shifts it in a way that, I mean, I think there's a lot of growth happening at this time as well. So also it's just fun. And
What's your favorite part about being a father?
Well, my favorite part about being a father, I think watching. It's hard to pin it down to one, but if I had to pick one, I think I would say so far that watching a consciousness develop is so fascinating to me. You start with a baby who, like, when it's brand new, it seems like he's very uncomfortable with this new world that he's in, right? He spent 9 months in breathing water, you know what I'm saying? Getting fed through a tube, not being able to hear things, like feeling cold, all that kind of stuff. And so the first period is like kind of getting adjusted and comfortable to this new existence. And then over time, you just see little by little, like, things happening and them discovering their hands. And it's absolutely fascinating to watch. And now at 10.5 months, he's starting to walk and talk a little bit and really develop a personality. And like, that's very, very fulfilling because now I'm like starting to actually get to know my son, you know what I'm saying? Which is awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's cool. Sounds like it's really rewarding. I have a dog. I can't really relate to that, but it sounds really awesome. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Let's go.
Finding the right person's key to that.
That is 100% true.
What shaped you more, martial arts discipline or music discipline?
Ooh. So I think discipline cuts way deeper. Obviously, like, it makes sense in a bunch of different contexts, but martial arts does something really unique, which is pushes you to uncomfortable positions on purpose. And so for you to show up is already you taking on basically voluntary suffering, you know what I'm saying? And so I do think that is pretty important, because the more that you put yourself in stressful situations, you do the stress test, then when you come back into the real world and somebody calls you a name you don't like, it doesn't really do much. When somebody, doing jujitsu and somebody's trying to choke you or break your arm, it's a little more, yeah. And then on the music side, I don't know that necessarily music comes with discipline, but if you want a career in it, you definitely have to develop some. And so, I think I learned a lot through my music career as well, through discipline, just on the basis of like understanding that it's a pipe dream if I don't just commit myself for the long run. And so I just kind of had to keep my head down and grind it out. So if I had to pick one, I'd probably say the music career. I just have a lot more time in the music career, but definitely do some martial arts.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so you do jujitsu, right?
Yeah. So I've done. I was a black belt in Taekwondo when I was a kid, which doesn't really mean much. I kind of did a lot of forms. You know what I mean? It was like a dance, a glorified dance.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. I did karate. When I was younger, so yeah.
Well, maybe you got to do a little more. I mean, I did get to spar when I was young.
Okay.
So that's cool. But
cool.
No, but then I went to in high school, middle school and high school. I wrestled for 2 years before I got injured. And then I did MMA for a couple years, and then now I'm in jiu-jitsu. So I've always been kind of fascinated by martial arts since I was young, but I never stayed with it consistently enough to do it like long-term and develop one specific discipline. But I think jiu-jitsu is where it's at now, because at this age, I'm a lot less, I'm not willing to get shin kicked in the head and, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some danger there. I remember I did karate like all through high school, and
okay.
And I didn't do a lot of team sports. It was like dirt bikes and karate. Mm-hmm. And Randy Lloyd, he was my teacher, and I don't know if you have to do this with jiu-jitsu or taekwondo. Like, you ever have to spar with a teacher before?
Oh yeah. In MMA. Well, it's a very humbling experience, because all right, I feel like every guy has this picture of how they would do in a fight. It's like your masculine testosterone urge. You're like, yeah, dude, like, what? Trust me, bro. Once I see red, like, it's up. But what happens is when you actually start training, and my coach was he was like 6-0 amateur, or no, 6-0 pro MMA fighter, but he was in like a local promotion, so it wasn't in the UFC or anything like that. But when you spar with him, there's absolutely nothing you can do, because everything you attempt to do, you get hit with like 3 things. Right. And it's you're just like, oh, I didn't know that people could do this. Like, you know what I mean?
I do. My my instructor was like a multinational champion, and he had this kick where he'd be in line with you, right? Like, you're like side by side, and then he'd like step towards you and like turn down, and his foot goes up and kick you in the stomach, and I'm like, oh, it's coming. And then, like, there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah,
it's like, kick the stomach, and like, or like, you just pull your punches before you don't actually hit someone in the face. You know? And like one time I hit him in the nose, and I think I drew blood too, and I was like, oh, God, this is not going to end well for me. But you said it right. It's like kind of like that willingness, suffering. It just brought me back to some stories from like karate class, like that, like the kick coming that's going to get you, or we would do we would stand in a circle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if jiu-jitsu does something like this, and then we would turn to the person on our left and hit them in the stomach, and ki, like, make a sound.
Yeah.
And then we'd go around in a circle till like, and it would get increasingly, you'd hit each other harder and harder till someone like just like collapses out of the circle.
Oh, dang. No, we didn't do any of that. But that sounds interesting. Yeah. I don't know if my abs can handle that.
Yeah. It was even, I feel like I have pretty good abs, but you can only take a hit so hard.
Yeah,
man.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's crazy. How do you decide which dreams are worth chasing and which to let go?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, we could start with the initial driver, which I think is your passion. If you develop something that like a desire in you to do something, and it's so prevalent that it's like all you can think about, it's probably worth pursuing. There's probably some kind of signal for that. And so that's kind of how music was for me. When I started making music, it was just for fun. And eventually, like within a couple weeks of just like making songs and stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I really want to do this. So I would be at school, and all I'd be looking forward to is just like the bell ringing so I could go home and just make music. So I think that's a signal. And so it might be worth pursuing. You do have to examine other things. But I think over time, as you mature and develop, you start to think outside of just your individual self, and you start to kind of look at culture and people around you, and your long-term career stability and growing a family and things like that. And so what my immediate desire is may not need to be a career. It may just need to remain a hobby. And I think that's a determination that every person has to make. But I think there's this Japanese concept called ikigai. And I think that it's really kind of hitting this question, which is, it's sort of a Venn diagram situation. And it's what you are good at, what you are passionate about, what you can make money from, and what you can do for society. Or what's good for society. So it's like
I'm seeing that. Yeah.
That's cool. It's essentially like if you are able to hit something that is at the cross section of all of those, then that's kind of where you need to be, right? Which, and I think the passion is important, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to bring that level of effort to it. True. And if you can't make money from it, that may not be a deal breaker, but we need money to survive. And so, okay, if you also have to work 40-hour a week job, you're not going to have the time to dedicate towards it. If it's not good for society or good for people, to what end are you doing the thing? For self-gratification, And so I think all of those kind of have to be taken into account. But I think that's probably the best model I've heard for what dreams are worth pursuing.
I think it's important to know what you think about and focus on majority of the time too. Says a lot about a person and what they're passionate about. What do you think the majority of your thoughts, if you had to put it in a theme, what do you think about majority of the time?
That's actually one of my favorite questions. I love asking that question. It changes through different stages. I'll tell you, for the past 4 months, all I've been thinking about is God, AI, family, and art. Basically. So, and I would say God and AI take up probably about 80% of my mental bandwidth.
Gotcha.
I've kind of just been obsessed on and terrified, both. So the God balances out the AI,
Gotcha. What terrifies you about AI?
Oh my gosh, this is a rabbit hole. There's a ton of stuff. I think there are all these scenarios with AI that are, doomer, and that could happen. You think of the alignment problem, which is like, if we don't create AI to be aligned with human values, then what we might create in our image might turn out to be destructive, or not value the things that we value in the same way. Also, the humans don't even agree on what that is, so that's a problem in and of itself.
True. But
outside of all of these potential things, there are problems that are just a guarantee. And one of the ones that bothers me a lot is Brett Weinstein talks about it, which is hyper novelty. So he's an evolutionary biologist, and he talks about how organisms, especially like humans, are very good at adapting, but we need a time horizon in order to do that. And technology has been on an asymptotic curve, and so it has been, we have world-changing discoveries at a faster and faster rate, and we're getting to the point that our ability to adapt to these things is being outpaced by the technological advancement. And so, social media is a good example of this. Like, we actually have such an addiction, and it's not like a fringe addiction where it's like, there's some subset of people who do fentanyl or heroin or whatever. Almost everyone is spending too much time on their phone, and you're getting dopamine hit, and the algorithms are meant to keep you there, and they're meant to just kind of drain you. And so I think that's a real problem, and I think that presents issues for us as humans that we don't have the true capacity to deal with. It's very difficult to adapt to. Another example of that is, like, throughout human history, we have always had a harder time getting more calories than less calories, right? Okay. We've basically solved the world hunger, in terms of the cost of producing food through all of our modern farming technologies and things like that. And so we actually don't have in America especially, we don't have a problem with people being able to eat enough food. The problem is it's flipped the other direction, which is people eat too much food. You know what I'm saying? It's become like a desire-based thing, and our bodies aren't really like prepared for that kind of stuff. So then you have this mass increase in diabetes and heart-related issues, and obesity increases all-cause mortality like substantially. And so anyway, you have all these issues, but the hyper novelty part of that is kind of really what I'm getting at, is that as this thing progresses, we are going to be presented with problems that over and over that we cannot make sense of. And also, like, the landscape of that becomes really complex too, because something that I've been struggling with a little bit is, you know, as a man and as a father and as a husband, I'm attempting to lead my family for this new future. And I think it's my responsibility to try to understand the landscape and sort of pave a path forward. The problem is that if you've been paying enough attention to where things are going with AI, you look at all of the pathways forward, they're shifting constantly. And there's no expert to look to predict what is going to happen. So I'm in this situation where I'm trying to make a plan for the future, and every time I learn more about it, it just gets more complicated and more complex, to where it's like, what jobs are actually going to be here? What sort of industries are going to emerge out of this? What should I spend my time doing? So there's a lot of issues, man. Hyper novelty is kind of at the top of the heap, but I mean, I could go on this for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your perspective, and I definitely think, yeah, it's one of those things, when I think about it, it's hard to predict where it's going, especially because it's exponentially increasing.
Yeah.
What I find humorous is some people I interact with or work with, they think like, oh, well, I'm not going to use AI, or AI is not going to affect me. It's like,
yeah,
it's going to affect everyone in just ways we can't predict.
Yeah.
You know, and I think all you can do, like with anything with life, is just do the best you can.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, what's the moment you actually forgave your father, and how did it change you?
Yeah, me and my father had a turbulent relationship. He's now passed. But there was, you know, over time, because he was an adversarial figure in my life, I spent a lot of time thinking about him. And, you know, once I got out of sort of this, you know, agnostic, dark night of the soul period of my life, where I had like more really not focusing on spirituality whatsoever, when I started to kind of look into some of these things, and as I started to mature myself, I realized that I had way more issues than I thought I did. You know, you have this kind of ego protective barrier and defense mechanisms thing you add on top of that, but a real change can start to happen when you start to consider that you might actually be the problem in a lot of cases.
Sure.
And, you know, and the one of the big Christian themes is that, you know, everybody has original sin, and that theme is all through the Bible. But anyway, what happened for me is I started to realize, like, oh, like, I have a lot more things that I'm contributing to my own circumstances than I thought. And so I started to work on those. And the more I started to work on those, I started to see how other people had those same things. You have this outward projection of internal problems, and it doesn't always look the same, right? So a lot of times arrogance or anger or whatever can be insecurity, you know what I'm saying, or things like that. And as I started to kind of view my father through those lenses and just kind of think about how he would have felt as an adult in his situations, I started to apply more grace there. And over time, I just realized that he was somebody who just could not get out of his own way. And that is ultimately what led me to the perspective from, you know, seeing him as like an antagonist in my life, to almost pitying him, and just being like, man, I really wish, you know, my dad could realize, like, could do some of that inward work, because his life would actually, you know, it's almost self-fulfilling. If you're somebody who is very distrusting, and I don't trust people, you know, like somebody, like, then you start to view and interpret every interaction with people as they're trying to get something from you. And then the effect that has because of that interaction is that people don't want to connect with you because you're acting weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then what happens is it like fulfills your own internal framework, because you're only looking at that portion of humanity and treating people with those things. So that it wasn't really a specific moment. It was more a just a long journey of realizing that we all have things that we need to overcome, and some people are unwilling to face them.
Absolutely. And like primarily like what I do, like one-on-one coaching and then coaching for businesses. And like I got my like national certification for coaching. And one of the things I learned when, like you said it greatly, that people need to get out of their own way. And oftentimes until you explore, people don't realize, oftentimes people have these limiting beliefs about themselves, and they're usually there for a reason, to protect us from having pain again in the future.
Yeah.
But those beliefs oftentimes will hold us back from getting those next goals. And I can definitely relate to, my dad died like 4 years ago from a heart attack, and like you just go back and realize, you're like, they're just doing, like, everyone's out here trying to do the best they can, you know, or you might kind of disregard like something they say or whatever. Like my dad, like when I always knew him, he was just kind of overweight and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I used to be in great shape like you." And I was like, "Ah, whatever, Dad." You know what I mean? And then like if you look and see some of these, like, so these are like, that's me in the center, that picture there. But like right to the left is like picture of my dad. Like he's like, I found these pictures after he died, and I'm like, holy shit, he's like ripped. You know what I mean? And also like if you look at the pictures, like we're doing the same turn, like we're very similar in many different ways, but different, you know. And it's like, oh man, you know, there's some guilt there, you know, just like afterwards, like, oh, I should have listened to him, or, you know, you kind of write off some of the things they say and just realize, like, as they're growing up and they're just a product of their environment and just doing the best they can, like they could too, you know what I mean? So,
yeah 100%.
What's the biggest lesson forgiveness taught you that people usually miss?
Forgiveness is huge, man. I mean, this is very conventional wisdom, but you know, despite the fact that people have heard it, I do think it is something that people miss. And from a personal perspective, like, forgiveness is like letting go. You know, if you know, if I transgressed you, I might not even know that I did that, right? Because I don't know what offends you, and you might go on the rest of your life thinking about it, but it's not hurting me. Right. And I mean, that's not even the goal, but like it's just eating at you for what? Because your ego is hurt, you know?
Correct.
And so I think forgiveness is the ability to kind of just like, I mean, one of the big benefits is that you get to just release that tension that is just, you know, you don't want to sit with that so long, you know what I mean? And it kind of shapes your perspective about the world. And if you're able to, I think it requires grace to get to that forgiveness too. And so you also have a conception and a source of grace. But if you have grace, you apply that maximally to the people around you. And if you get in the habit of doing that, I think that forgiveness comes a lot easier. And then once you actually truly forgive somebody and let it go, it'll feel like a weight lifted off of you. And so I think that one's really, really important. And also, this is a much more macro philosophical point, but I think that every time you do an action that is with an upward aim, you are turning the world and your soul a notch towards heaven, basically, versus hell. You know, cool. So every lie you tell, it might be a white lie. You're like, it's not that bad, or like this and that, but it's you know, C.S. Lewis put it that way, where it's like a dial that you're shifting both your soul and society at large towards something worse or better, you know. And so forgiveness is you know what I'm saying, it's a point in the direction of a more flourishing society.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I believe in Jordan Peterson says, like, you should never lie, and I think from like just even from a concept of like when everything goes to shit, you got to be able to rely on yourself to count on yourself, like who you are as a person, and you know the truth and you speak truth, because it's like if you're lying to yourself all the time, lying to other people, it's like, who can you count on? Yeah. Like when like shit hits the fan, you know, it's like you got to be truthful and a solid person, and just, I don't know, it's just a great way to live, where it's like you don't have to look over your shoulder, you know, kind of like, this is who I am, there's nothing to hide, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think that's also a virtue, you know, because a lot of times the reason people lie is because they're, you know, privately trying to get something out of a situation, or they're trying to mask an insecurity or whatever, you know. So I think if you're able to truly, I don't even want to say truly be yourself, because maybe yourself actually has a lot of issues, and maybe you shouldn't be truly yourself, but you should be the way you were designed in God's image. But I think a good litmus test for me is thinking about whether or not the actions that I'm doing, if everyone did them in society, would the society be better or worse? So if you think about like this lie's not that bad, okay, well let me consider if everyone lied, not this specific lie, but if everyone lied, you know, how would that shape society? It would, yeah, obviously it would be poor. So then maybe you just don't do that. Don't participate in that, you know, shifting culture in that way. I know it's really hard to see something as micro as that, like as applying to the macro, but we're all individuals in a network. A society is a culture, a society, a community. They're all just individuals coordinating with each other. And so I read this book by Thomas Sowell called Basic Economics, which is exactly what it sounds like. And one interesting point that he made in there was that countries that have a really hard time developing any like GDP are really, really corrupt governments. And it's because a lot of the business people who like want stability, they're trying to build capital accumulation over the long run. If you have a corrupt government that's charging them for you know, overcharging them for licenses, not like, you know, it's kind of got their foot down. These business people who want to make something and build something, they'd leave. Like they're not sticking around because if the idea of I pave a way forward in this direction and then the government can just come and be like, yeah, we don't want you to do that, or like, hey, pay money to pass. It's like that's not predictable. It's too chaotic. And so yeah, then you have like really, really poor societies, like financially, as a result of a corrupt government, which is the result of, you know, a culture in the government of, you know, that lacks morality. You know what I mean? So like it really does work that way. It does expand in that way.
How did meeting your wife force yourself to see yourself differently?
Apparently, I see myself as much more handsome because I shouldn't have been able to land her.
That's probably the best answer you could say.
Yeah, no, my wife is awesome. I mean, we're truly soulmates and best friends. It's really what it feels like, and I'm very blessed. I do think that's one of the best decisions you can make is picking the right partner. But I think where my brain goes with this is kind of along the lines of what I think a good friend is. And I think a good friend is somebody who wants to help you become the best version of yourself. And that can be subjective unless it's grounded in some kind of moral framework. So for me, a lot of my friends are Christians, and they're not like they don't just wear it. Like they're like they really recognize their own shortcomings, and they're constantly trying to dive into scripture and figure out like how to improve and check themselves in every relationship. It's like that kind of commitment. My friends call me out on things. You know, my friends will be like, hey, like, I think you handled this wrong because of this, or like, where's your heart posture at with these things? And I'm in a position where I have to be open to that feedback. If I care more about my ego, then I'm, you know, that's being defensive. That's the other side, right? But being that I have my eyes set on a stronger relationship with God, anytime anything like that is exposed in me, it's an opportunity for me to work on something, and that excites me. So I'm like, yeah, please give me that feedback, and I actually try to take it seriously. And I'm not saying that is a perfect process, but you know, sometimes I might get offended or whatever. But my wife was great at doing that, and especially at a time where I was much less open to it. So Tim Keller, he's a pastor that I really like. He actually died around the time my dad died. He wrote a book on marriage, and my wife and I read it. And one of the things it says in there is when you first get into a marriage or like a long-term relationship, once you get after the puppy love stage where everything is just like exciting and whatever, you start to see the selfishness of your partner, and you see the selfishness of your partner as greater than your own. So you go, oh, you're really selfish, and you're like, I'm selfish, but you're like really selfish, right?
Yeah,
and
you guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
right?
way worse than I am. You know,
it feels like that. It's visceral. But what happens is, when you guys are working together, if you want for the relationship to flourish, at some point you got to go, okay, well, maybe if I take a little ownership, then something can happen. And if one person takes ownership, then it can lead the other person to take ownership. But if both people do it, I mean, that's the that is the beginning of a really flourishing relationship. And so what my wife did, you know, like early on in our relationship, she would be calling me out for things, I'd be calling her out for things, and we'd be doing this back and forth. But at some point, like, when you reflect on enough, you're like, you know what, there is some truth to what she's saying. And I'm going to actually like take this seriously and try to, let me just make like the minimum effort. And then if she would give me credit for the minimum effort, then great. Now I'm like, okay, like you're recognizing this. So like I'm working in this direction. That's perfect. And then she would be, you know, seeing me make this improvement that she's looking for, like transforms her mood, right? Because she's no longer dealing with that, and she's seeing that I'm moving in that direction, and then so now she's doing things that I like back, and it's this almost flywheel of support, and you sort of grow, and you help each other refine each other. And so for my wife, she pointed out all the selfishness and stuff in me, and all the issues I had with communication. And she still does those things, you know, and but over time it gets easier and easier if we're open to it to like look at those as like an opportunity to grow and to correct something. And so, I mean that's a huge one for me for sure.
I think you touched on a lot of key points, and like I think about that with anything with like self-development or coaching, it's like making yourself as a leader open to feedback yourself, and then the people who are giving you feedback makes them more open to feedback as well too.
Yeah.
It's accepting that gracefully, because then it gives you more opportunity to grow. People will come to you with feedback, and you're not just like angry, you know, like about that's not true. At least considering it, like, and you don't have to take every like bit of feedback someone gives you as like, oh, that is true.
Yes.
Sometimes you're like, I hear your feedback. I do not accept that. You know, at least if I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, but because also too, right, the other side of that, not every piece of feedback someone gives you
That's true.
is always going to be true or helpful. They might be missing a part of information that they might need to say, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I was just going to add to that. I think that you're 100% right on that. But each criticism has to be examined, and it has to be examined against something. So even if you have a reason why for doing something, it has to be grounded in a worldview. And is that worldview calibrated to truth, goodness, and the highest? Like, if it is, then when you examine it and you're like, yeah, like, no, I think I actually acted in a way that is in line with a high moral standard, then you can sort of write that off, and you go, hey, I appreciate the feedback, like, you know, but it doesn't need to be integrated. But I mean, we are the easiest people to fool. Like, fooling yourself is very, very easy. And so, yeah, it's a slippery slope for me sometimes to be like, well, I feel justified in what I'm doing, because like, just because you feel justified, that has all kinds of things wrapped up into it. So anyway, just additional thought there.
Yeah, no, I like it. Like, I think of our brain lies to us a lot.
Yeah.
Like, especially when we're gonna go do something. Like, one of my friends, he had this way of thinking. Like, he's like, I'm gonna go talk to this girl I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. But then as someone walks up, they start getting nervous, and like your brain starts saying all these things to itself, like, that aren't true. Mm-hmm. And a good way to counteract that is, as he's gonna go up and walk and talk to someone he's interested in, it's like, hey, just keep in mind your brain's about to lie to you. Mm-hmm. And because it does. And you think like, oh, well, they're not going to be interested, blah, 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 whatever interaction. And you go up and talk to them like, oh, actually, like, they were super cool. And that was great. Like, I'm so, like, glad I did that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So just a funny other thing to think about. What's one way marriage has made your art better?
Oh, I think my art has gotten substantially better over time because, well, one obviously I've been practicing, but
obviously,
yeah, no, I think that a few years ago when I started to have more of a spiritual, starting on a spiritual journey, that sounds really corny, but when I started to actually pay attention to some of the deeper questions and like look into them, I started to consider what my music was about. You know, and you can see this if you were to listen to my catalog from the point where early college or high school, where I was like, heartbroken and had all these issues. You hear a lot of pain in the music, and then you get to a point where I started to make money from music, and I started to, like establish myself in my early 20s into a career. And then I was really into finance at the time. And then you start seeing me make just a bunch of secular music, trying to make like hit songs that are just about how cool I am and how you know what I'm saying? Like the standard rap thing, right? And then over time you see this kind of shift away from that, where I again am reconsidering through my worldview what the purpose of my art is. And so now I shifted more from viewing myself as a business person in my early 20s, which I definitely have that kind of like predisposition to be into business. But I was like, man, I really actually just love making art. And so I started to treat myself like an artist, and when I started to do that, I started to just study art and really try to push myself creatively. So those things have brought me quite a long way. It's just a new sort of foundational identity around how I view myself in relation to music, which my wife contributed to. And then also just seeing what the purpose of my art is. And so again, with this new worldview, I see art way less about making a cool song or making something that people are going to be excited to consume. Those things are important, but I kind of view it as like, if I'm able to make a song that is amazing, it will have more power to win souls or to plant a seed that will turn somebody hit like that dial, and so I kind of see it as a much greater mission, but that gives me so much more purpose for making something profound. And my wife is just in conjunction, like pushing all of this kind of stuff, I think, because she makes my life easy, and encourages me to be the best person that I can be. And so all of that kind of like, it's all synergized, you know what I mean? So
you said music is your art that has purpose. What's the main purpose?
Well, I view, and I'm still working a lot of this out. I'm fairly new to Christianity. I grew up Christian, and I spent about 10 plus years agnostic, and then I've been really into philosophy and basically I wanted to count the cost before I like stepped foot, but at some point I was like, okay, I need to take a bit of a faith jump. So I consider myself a baby Christian, right? Like, so I'm sure that this answer will evolve over time. But right now, I sort of view my art as an offering to God. This is my talent that I have developed with the gifts that I was given, and what I choose to speak about and what sounds I choose to make influence people. And so I'm looking at it as like, okay, well, what would it look like for my music to glorify God? And what does that mean? Well, God wants people to be aimed towards him. And so what does that look like? And then you get into all the theology and philosophy. But for me, I think that it's a situation where I'm like, I need to make music that encourages people to challenge their own preconceived notions and, suggest maybe through questions that it's like, maybe we should look over here, maybe we should look over here. And my hope is that that effect that it'll have on people will be something that actually transforms their life. It's not really about my music anymore. Like, it's not, that can be an ancillary effect, but that's not the primary motive. I think the primary motive is like helping people who are hurting, and really truly trying to show them like, yo, like, hey, forgiving your dad is going to release you of so much of anxiety and tension that you're just harboring because you feel like you can't let go of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have songs about forgiveness. I have songs about critiquing culture. I'm trying to get people to like think about or feel something that will plant a seed for them to change their life in a different direction. And so, yeah, if that's how I view art and its purpose, then I have a moral obligation to make the best music I can so I can affect the most people. And that's what really gets me going, because I'm like, okay, cool. I need to work with the best producer. I need to get the, you know what I'm saying? We got some work to do. That's what I feel like. So yeah.
I like it. I think it's coming a little where your heart's at. It's coming from the right spot. What would you say to someone who is having trouble forgiving a parent?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit. I think just applying maximum grace is super important. And I think the easiest way to do that is yourself better than anyone. But you have to have honest conversations with yourself. Not your ideal version of yourself, but the real version of yourself. But if you can see that you have a bunch of issues that you are, contributing to your relationships or whatever, and you can kind of take ownership of those things, you can really start to understand how everybody is out here just, I heard somebody put it like bleeding all over people. Like you know what I'm saying? It's like you're cut. I can't remember who said that. Yeah. I don't like it that much. But
okay.
But I mean, it's okay.
I'm like trying to explain it. I'm just curious about it. Like
no, it was like if you're if it's injured people who are spilling out, you know what I'm saying, all their extra stuff. People have when I encounter somebody being extremely rude at to a fast food worker or something like that, it's like, oh, you have like a lot of stuff that you're dealing with. That's probably a better example. A lot of stuff that you're dealing with, and I can sort of look at that and be like, that I feel bad for you. I know a lot of people are like, that person's like right, and feel that. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of looking at this person like, man, I'm really, really glad that I'm not in a position where I'm like screaming at somebody over a burger. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even if it was messed up. And so, wow, we went really all around this question. But yeah. I encourage you with your parents to apply maximum grace to them, to realize that you have problems and to kind of give them that same benefit of the doubt. I think that's really important.
Something I want to mention, as far as if someone does something hateful, and a comparison that I think of that I think you can relate to, or maybe that's what you're trying to say, but this is how I think of it. Mm-hmm. Hate's like having, like, hate comes out. It's like the same thing if you compared it to being full of like oranges, right? Like, but you're trying to squeeze out lemonade. And lemonade's like joy and happiness and contentment. Well, if all you have is oranges inside, you can squeeze orange all you want, you're not going to get lemonade.
Yeah.
Versus if you have the lemons, which is like, what's it saying? Like when life gives you lemons, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you squeeze them, it's like you have that happy contentment, which I think is in grace in your perspective. Like when I look at you and like you think about, and you talk about grace a lot, I think that's amazing. If you're just full of grace, the opposite, you're not going to get hate. It's not going to come out. It can't. Because no matter how hard you squeeze it.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What was the truth you discovered after hitting career success as a rapper?
Well, I feel like when I reached career success, and for me that was defined by being able to make a living doing music. That was sort of what I was always striving for, and for my formative years, that was like my sole focus was like, I want to make art for a living. How do I do that? And it took me, 8 years to make that a reality. And then even then, I was making just enough to get by. But over time, I got to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm more comfortable now. Once I got to the comfortable stage, my goal more or less had been achieved. And my focus started to shift because I had this, this period of a few months where I was feeling like a real lack of motivation. I had a conversation with my wife about it. I'm like, I don't know necessarily where to get motivation from. Now that I've kind of achieved this, it seems like, I don't know. And maybe that was an articulation that I didn't have until a little bit later. But her advice to me at the time, which I think was good, but not the greatest, which was that you should be motivated by reaching your full potential. And so, okay, I was like, okay, that got me thinking. I'm like, okay, my full potential. But then the sub question under that is why reach your full potential? To what end? And so that's really what got me thinking about like the purpose of the art and what am I doing this for? Okay, I already make money. So originally I was doing this not to make money, but I needed to do this so that I could make money, right? But now that part is covered. Like, okay, so now why am I doing this? And you start getting the wheels turning around those types of things, and those types of realizations. Again, all of this is the entire life arc is in conjunction with your foundational principles. Anything that whatever your sub beliefs are, your absolute core of how you view the world, which may not even be articulated to you, especially if you don't have something that is outside of your own conception, but something that you bounce off of, right? An objective moral framework like Scripture. Every decision you make is based on that worldview. And so as that worldview shifts, then you basically re-examine all areas of your life, bounce it off against that, and you kind of reshape and reform. And so that's kind of what's happening with every area of my life and has been happening for several months. And the closer I get in my relationship to God, the more that those things shift. But I think they're synergizing in a really profound way. And so that's honestly, man, that's a lot of the beauty of building a relationship with God. It calls you in different directions because you're like, oh, like these are the things that actually are important, and that starts to get more and more clear as you go along. So that was a big moment. The career success kind of sparked some of these deeper questions too.
Absolutely, because the next question, like you said, is what's next? It's like, I got money.
Yeah, more money.
Right.
Oh, and then what's after that? More money.
Right.
Dude, can I give you an anecdote? I don't know if I've said this on a podcast, but I watched a podcast with Dan Bilzerian. This is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Dan Bilzerian was on a podcast, and he said, I'll be honest with you, I am jealous and envious of a 50-year-old man in middle America. He said because he can get a boat, and a new boat, and that will sustain his happiness for a year. He goes, me, I've slept with all the most beautiful women in the world. I've been to all the best places. I've eaten all the best food. He goes, it's rare that I can experience anything that brings me the type of high that I would get from that, right? And just the total irony of this, of somebody who as a multimillionaire, many successful businesses, great physique, plenty of women, parties, traveling, all of that, is that he has gotten to that point, and he's so close to realizing that perhaps that's not the pathway to what you're seeking, right? He's still on the edge where he's like, man, if I could get, it's like he's addicted to adrenaline and satiation and stuff. And to me, though, that was almost one of the most, like hearing him say that was almost one of the most profound cases for Christianity to me. It's like, here's your archetype of person that, right? And they're telling you that this, the guy in middle America or whatever. I just think it's just one of the craziest ironies I've ever seen. And it's like, he's so close to it that it's just the exact opposite aim,
I think from a perspective of wisdom, I think he's since got it. I don't know too, like if you're talking about the same clip, there's one, we actually made like a reel about it a long time ago, and it relates to Ecclesiastes in the Bible, which I'll talk about. But he goes on to say, and whatever one I watch, I don't know if it's the same one, but he's like, what makes me more happy than anything is just like going surfing with my buddies and doing stuff like that, to where sometimes once you achieve some of the things you're going after, like money or whatever it is, then you realize like, oh, like that actually doesn't make me happy. Mm-hmm. When it really does make me happy, makes you feel content, is alignment with God, his purpose. And Ecclesiastes was the same story in the Bible. It's like, you want all these things and stuff, but then realize like, oh, none of this stuff makes me happy.
Yeah. I mean, like, there is definitely a level, of financial resources that make your life more comfortable. Like, there's no doubt about that.
Of course.
But it's a much lower bar than you think, and it also, it kind of comes down to your heart posture towards those things, and that's ultimately the core. So there's this Rupert Spira quote that I really like, where he gives this example of like, you want a Ferrari, and or let's just say a sports car, right? Something you can afford. You set your eyes on this, and let's say you're going to buy it. You're finally ready to buy it, and it's going to get shipped in, and so you're thinking about it, and it's coming in 3 weeks, and so you're like, I can't wait to get this. I'm ready to get this,
yeah,
right?
It's coming.
Yep. Finally, you get the car, and in that moment, you feel happiness. But the point is the happiness came as a result of you no longer desiring because now you have it. And the real lesson is that if you got rid of the desire, then you could have just had that the entire time, right? Because the new car sensation is going to wear off, and then you'll set your eyes on something else. And, it's like, bro, we do this all the time. You know what I'm saying? People still desire more things or different experiences. And I'm not saying don't do those. The removal of the desire to do those, I think desire is a kind of a loaded word, but I think it's the compulsion, like the thought that I need this in order to feel fulfilled. And I used to have that. I used to watch these mansion videos when I was in my early 20s, and I'm like, I will watch them and I'll be like, I have to have this when I'm going to grind it out and I'm going to live in this place, right? I don't feel that at all anymore, bro. Like, I'm just like, I'm chilling, bro. Like, you ever had a son? You know what I'm saying? You gotta, you know what I mean? You ever felt
children?
Real love, bro? Like, you got friends. Like, it's lit. It's lit in the mundane. If you could find happiness in the mundane, you're set. And all the material possessions are just like additives,
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's important to push yourself and want to be the best version of yourself and to be on a path towards growth. Then realize at the end of the week, I'm always trying to level myself up, and I compare myself to myself in all areas: faith, fitness, finances, my friends, relationships, all those things. Mm-hmm. I think it's important at the end of the week to look back and tell yourself a story of growth and not of lack. Because if you're getting, like, I'll get like 20 things done in the week, and I'm like, well, I didn't get 30 things done.
Yeah.
And if you tell yourself that story, you're always going to be in this place of like, when really you're making improvements, and with money, at a certain point, you have to just be like, it's enough.
Yeah.
Because it's insatiable, that desire. It just increases to where at all different levels, even in billionaires, they have people who are like, well, I'm not like so-and-so has $3 billion, even if they have $1 billion.
It's because their self-worth is wrapped up in the money. Like their identity is so wrapped up in, being a person that has more than others. And, especially in relationship to your peers, you also want to be powerful in relation to your peers and feel like you got it, It's like, that's the only way that you are at a point where you have millions and millions of dollars and you still feel like you got to, like, it's all a heart posture thing. Like, it's different if you own a piece of a company and you're building a company because you have a grand mission and your net worth happens to increase as a result of your share prices increasing. Like, that's a different thing. But, we're obviously talking about somebody who is keeping up with the Joneses. That's an ego problem. You are the center of your world and your universe. And, you feel like your identity is so tied to that. Your self-worth is so tied to your money that it is a requirement, like, for you to do this, and you don't feel good in relation to you don't feel good if you're not in a more prosperous position in relation to your peers. Like, that sucks. That's like the worst place to be at, because then you lack total gratitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if you have millions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? You have millions of dollars and your mental state is still like, but I don't, like, this person is still getting, it's like, bro, like, you're missing the boat, bro. We're happy over here in Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And like, and I know, like, we just met, like, one thing I'm blessed with is my parents did the best they could. But I came from, like, I grew up in a trailer court, you know what I mean? And like, I didn't have money, you know what I mean? And I've earned everything that I've got, with lots of help from mentors and coaches and different things like that. And I just think that I'm blessed because now when I have anything nice, I appreciate it so much, because at the highest level, I also am like, I don't need this over here. You know what I mean? Like, it's it's like the best way to view both things is, like, I think it's a blessing to not have anything versus people who they're born with everything.
Yeah, I definitely think it's probably harder.
Yeah.
If you're a nepo baby to, like, get those insights. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
There's some people who never have anything and then they get something and then now they totally wield the power because they always felt powerless. Like, you know, and there's probably also Nepo babies that like their whole life have been treated like a Nepo baby and feel like, dude, I want to do my own thing and I don't care about this. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't make that jump personally. I don't know. But yeah, but I mean, I have a similar story to you, which is like we share in that, you know, we didn't have a lot growing up and you know, I'm definitely like, bro, I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. I was the first one to, you know, own a business, like, you know, and those things are all great. But then it's like, okay, but I'm still like I don't know. I guess my perspective now, like as I get older, is like, yeah, but am I being the best like son I can be though? Like, am I being the best brother I can be? And those are the things that's way harder. That's way harder to wrestle with and deal with than just like making money, bro. Making money is easy.
I think you're asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing, if you haven't realized yet, relationships are the most important thing and most valuable. And the way you can figure out that something is really valuable or affects your life is like when those aren't going well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like if your relationship with your wife wasn't going well,
bro, hell,
it's gonna affect.
Yeah,
it'll affect everything.
Yes, bro.
So it's like, well, that's obviously what's really important.
Yeah,
and like worth it.
Bro, I'd much rather have no money than a chaotic home life. You know.
Amen.
Like, yeah, I'd rather have no money and my wife being like, we got this. I got your back. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, picking the right partner is super, super important. What's the moment you realize this can't be all there is?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be that music moment, or one of them. It would be the music moment where I arrived at what I had set my sights on, which is the career in music, and then kind of got to a point where I'm like, all right, well, I need a new vision, and more money is not the new vision. I mean, like if I'm in a position where I can buy most things I want to buy, I mean, like a nicer version of that thing is like, I don't care about that. So, yeah, I don't know, probably that moment.
When did pursuing a relationship with God stop being a concept and start being real for you?
I would say fairly recently. It's kind of hard to answer this only because it depends on how you define God. I think, yeah, the God as a concept, I feel like I've been following probably for several years. But I think once I hit enough of the philosophical and intellectual arguments and things like that, I think at the end of that, I was kind of left with, oh yeah, I think for me to continue growing in this, like if I can sit here and have all the, conversations, I watch debates, and I, know the teleological arguments, and I know this is like, at some point I have to take a faith jump so that other things can be revealed. So at some point I have to go, okay, let me actually like try to suspend my disbelief around this thing. I'm already on board with all the ethics of it. I'm on board with the metaphysics of it and the existence of a God. But now let me like really, really try to consider some of the more religious language and take it a little more seriously. And so that's sort of like my step into baby Christianity is like, okay, I'm going to start really like trying to consider those things. So I think that's actually fairly recent. Yeah, and hopefully it just continues growing in that. Maybe I'll come on here in a few years and be completely different. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
We'll see. I'm enjoying our conversation. I'd love to have you on another time. Why do you think Christianity is becoming more popular today?
I think we have a meaning crisis. I think culture has sold us an idea of how to live that has been totally insufficient. It hasn't been working. We have more anxiety and depression despite being the most prosperous society in the history of the world. You know what I mean? And so I think for the people that are, I think they're waking up to this idea that it's like, okay, well, yeah, we tried this experiment of like live for yourself and find your own identity and value, and it's like, yo, that's extremely hard to do and extremely complex, because finding your identity and naming it for yourself is like, I mean, you have billions of potential ways you could frame that, and so like Christianity provides, I think, the most foundational, strong framework for what your identity should be grounded in, which is being made in the image of God, and all human beings have worth that is beyond the earthly existence. And I think that I don't know, I just think that that's really, really potent. So people are, yeah, dude, like, I mean, bro, we've all been living in the same time. It's like, bro, like, yeah, dude, it's crazy out there. Like, this is not like, it's not working. Like, seek God. That's
Amen. And especially if something's not working, we got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I don't know if you know this about me too. I mean, the whole purpose I'm doing all of this is that I believe God put me here to help people.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the primary reason. I don't need to start a podcast and do any of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm blessed where I'm at and other things, but I have a way of creating a roadmap for my life and figure out that deeper purpose. And once I did that, and once you are aligning with your purpose, I'm all in on doing this stuff. I mean, for me, I have to shut myself down at night because I want to work on this stuff all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's not about me. It's about other people.
Yeah.
And I think guiding them towards God and being aligned with God. And like, maybe like someone listens, like you don't know your purpose.
Yeah.
But if you align with mine, sharing the commenting, if something that you said or I said helps resonate with someone, getting those positive messages out to people can help people.
Yeah.
And so it really makes a big difference. I've had friends too where I'm as busy as I can be. I always make myself super busy.
Yeah.
But some friends who I've disconnected with in the past, just I'm not around them physically because I'm just busy. Like, oh, my life kind of fell apart once I stopped hanging out with Jake and stuff, you know, to where the closer I was with them, I could positively impact them. So through social media and podcasting, things like that, I can kind of spend a lot more time with a lot of people.
Yeah,
and the goal is to positively impact them to where maybe you don't have someone to look up to, you know, or a parent you admire. Well, it's like if you can help guide someone and give some advice from me or a guest that I listen to, like the more the better. You know? Man, it just makes everything else like worthwhile doing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, man. Yeah, dude, I feel that way too, but I think it's just sometimes I just feel like I don't know, I'm hesitant to do that in a lot of cases because I'm just like, bro, like, I look at how much my perspective has shifted from like a couple years ago. I'm like, bro, that's why I gave that caveat earlier on like my art question was like, I don't know, bro. I feel like 2 years from now, hopefully we're all gonna be more wise in the future. So, yeah, like that's what. I don't know. I for sure have a proclivity to try to give advice for sure. And I actually think that something I've been trying to do recently is like try to walk that back some. But that's because I think my communication style has been poor. Like I think I'm like a fixer kind of person. Like, okay. And so I would be like, all right, like especially with people I care about, I'm like, hey, like all you need to do is this, all you need to do is that. And a lot of times that actually doesn't work for them. You know, it kind of has almost the opposite effect. But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, we're on this journey, bro. We're just trying to figure stuff out, bro. But I feel like conversations like this are great because you can, you know, I think it's awesome that you're doing a podcast like this because you get to talk to people and like, there's this idea called dialectic in philosophy, which is like the conversation with the aim of achieving or getting to truth. And so it's like bouncing off, like you've studied and read all these things. You're, you know, a certified coach and I have my own journey and whatever, and like we kind of get to bounce off and hopefully we both leave with something and then we are one step closer to truth. So I think, you know, through doing something like this, like you're clearly committed to the idea of like achieving an end that you'll be better prepared in the future, you know what I'm saying, for doing that. So yeah, that's fire.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess like at the end it comes from a place of like wanting to help people, you know. And I want to ask you, when you're trying to give people advice, why do you think it doesn't work?
I don't know. I think people gotta. I think people have to be open to advice. I think it's probably the unsolicited advice part of it, right? Because then it's just criticism, and that's something I've been working through a lot recently. Is like trying to figure out how to like critique people less. I used to justify it because I'm like I'm also this critical with myself. So, right, but other people didn't sign up for that. I'm speaking specifically to like people really close to me who I'm like, hey, I know what would improve your life, and I really want you to work on that. And it comes from a place of love, but it's. I think what is actually more effective, honestly, is like me just being there for them and being a good person. Like that's how a lot of my Christian friends have affected me. Most of them, they weren't just like, Bible thumping, or anything like that. It was just a long journey of them just like including me and being, I don't know, just being like genuine people. I heard John Lennox say that, no, not John Lennox, Dennis Prager, and I think he was quoting somebody else, so I don't know who the source of this was. But the idea is that the best way to make someone or convert someone to Christianity is by being a good Christian, and the best way to turn them away from it is being a bad Christian. And so I just had good Christians around me, like people who are really like committed to that, and I would see the ways that their life would transform over time. And at some point you go, okay, hey, like, what is that? You know what I mean? It kind of opens that up a little bit. So I think that's more the model I'm trying to figure out that component, because I've gotten feedback that like my communication in that it's not working out. So, yeah, I guess maybe that's like a good reflection. One of the recent ones for me, in relation to that. So,
You mind if I give you some advice?
yeah, please.
Or at least as people listening to it, what I think works well is leading by example. I think it's number one to influence people.
I agree with that.
If you want someone to work out or do X, Y, Z habit, just do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And people will say, like your Christianity example, well, they're good Christians surrounding you. It's going to draw them toward Christianity or God. Or a lot of people don't take advice. There might be a couple people, just like you'll probably take some of the advice I'm telling you here. People have to pay because they're invested. And that's why, like, I have to be like, oh, why don't you just coach me for free? It's like,
yeah.
I can, but like I've had conversations with people over an hour, 2 hours sometimes coaching, be like, oh, can I talk to you about this? And talk hours over, 2 hours over. They don't take any of my advice. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we doing here? Like wasting my time. They didn't necessarily respect my time. It's where like I wouldn't want to have to charge someone for it, but if that's what's going to be effective, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it kind of. You want to be effective, right? Like that's the whole point. Like you have someone's best interest in mind, and we talked about like if you're doing stuff that isn't necessarily working, like what do we do?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, that's good advice, bro.
How do you respond when your beliefs go against the crowd?
Ooh, how do I respond when my beliefs go against the crowd? I am trying to become a person that gets more and more comfortable with that, bolder in the truth. I think that, bro, like social currency is important. Like and like what they used to do to people who were outcasts, they would excommunicate them, which doesn't seem that crazy. Like you're just like, oh, like that's the worst thing you can do is just make me leave the city. But it's like, no, like, dude, all the people that you've ever connected with in your entire life, like you've been disenfranchised. You have, so it's like, that's one of the most soul sucking things, right? We require those relationships, and I think that that is really important. But at the same time, like the stability of a society requires people to speak truth. And so, I don't want, I take that very seriously too, though, because it's like, well, I want to really make sure I've thought about the things that I say. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Which, hence something like a certification, right? Like, if you were a life coach and had your whole life was in disarray, maybe don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, Yeah. I think I'm just trying to like become more bold in that. And as I feel more like convicted, because yeah, honestly, like groupthink is like look at how culture. Like, I mean, look at the span, bro. People just kind of, if you don't think about it deeply, people just kind of go with whatever is socially acceptable. And so, but when people do that, and if it's in a direction that is contrary to what makes a flourishing society, then you have a lot of chaos, and it sucks basically for everyone that lives in a society like that. So
yeah.
How
How important do you think it is to create a vision to get you to where you're at now?
I mean, I think vision is like the whole name of the game, actually. Because I guess maybe if vision is defined kind of as worldview, you have this like ultimate end. What's your ultimate end? Is kind of how I view it. It's the most delayed gratification, and I think Christianity has the best version of that, which is that if you continue to push the time horizon out, right? You're not just looking 10 years in the future. When you have kids, it makes you think of even beyond your own life, right? So you're starting to interact in the world in a way that kind of sets your kids up, so that even when you're gone, there's something going on. But like even beyond that is thinking of eternity as the time horizon. And I mean, I think that's the greatest vision that you can, you could set your eyes on, because then everything in your life kind of coordinates towards that. I think another quote that kind of sums this up, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a Tim Keller quote, which is that if you aim at what do you say? If you aim at heaven, you get earth thrown in, and if you aim at earth, you get neither. And so, yeah, I think vision is everything.
Do you think that people who listen to you or listening to this podcast right now, if they had a roadmap to help them decide or help them gain clarity on their vision, do you think that would be helpful?
I think it's really complex, man. We all have different places we came from, and different sub experiences, and different personality types, and different relationship dynamics and stuff. So I think it's really hard to apply a roadmap. Like I would feel remiss to try to prescriptively give a roadmap unless I knew someone deeply. I think if you know somebody that you're really close to, and you can see kind of like those little inner things that they don't show to other people, that's where you have a little bit more of a thing that you can put them towards. I would say, though, that there's a lot of wisdom for your specific circumstance in the Bible. And again, I'm really new. I feel like I probably don't have the, I'm sure some of my other friends will be able to give a better answer to that. But I just think that when you read the Bible, because it's so foundational, when you're examining like a real philosophical worldview, your specific circumstance, you read it into the passage, right? You read it into that, and if you're taking it seriously and challenging yourself on that, that will start to work in you and in your life in a way that I wouldn't be able to. You know what I'm saying? I like no roadmap I could give you would have that sort of potency and solvency. So
I'm just curious, and the reason I ask is because for people who are listening to this, I wouldn't necessarily give someone a roadmap, but I have an exercise, like a document that would help someone create their own roadmap to give them the vision and their purpose.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this, go to my Instagram, Jake Paul Turner, DM me the word roadmap and podcast, and I will send you the document that will help you get your roadmap for your life and help you find your purpose.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's go.
Yeah, it's good.
I want the document. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to send it on Instagram.
Go to Jake Paul Turner. DM me the word roadmap, and I will send it to you. So,
yeah, dude.
It's part of it. While we have a moment, too,
yes,
I want to promote your music and your business. How can people find you and listen to your music?
Oh, yeah. I'm Nate Rose on all streaming platforms, and Nate Rose Music on all social platforms. So NATEROSE, like the flower. Somebody put ROWS, and so I don't kayak or come from a family of bleachers, but But that was a really dumb joke.
No.
That's a dad joke. I'm a father officially. I got Athanasios going because he's the pun king.
I have a dad joke book. I'm a big
Okay, all
I'm
right.
a big dad
we're in
joke
it,
fan.
dude. If your podcast listeners are dad jokes, then I won everyone over.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, you fill bleachers though. That's like ironically like
Yeah.
what you do. What's one habit that paid you back the most over time?
I'm going to sound like a broken record. Applying maximum grace to people and introspection, or more broadly, ego dissolution. I mean, that's not a habit, but like anything that takes you from being the Denzel of your movie or the centerpiece, and both insecurity and arrogance are a manifestation of ego, which is like, if you're insecure, how am I going to be viewed in this situation? What if, it's like you're just thinking about yourself. And if you're arrogant, it's the same exact thing. It's like, dead center. And so anything that any habit that leads to ego dissolution, I think is a step in the right direction.
What is ego dissolution?
I know it's a very loaded word. In Christian terminology, I think sanctification. But the idea of just moving from a place where you think of the way that you think is I am in relation to the world. I think the less that you think like that, the better your life will actually be, and the better people's lives will be around you. So another Tim Keller quote that is, think of selflessness is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So I think that's probably a better way to encapsulate it than the loaded ego dissolution term. But
it's cool. I think that's like just an interesting term. I've never heard of it, so I'm like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So, what's the failure you're most thankful for now?
Ooh, I mean, I've got a lot of those. Some I'm not thankful for.
A lot of failure. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
let's talk about the thankful. I mean, you can talk about whichever.
No, I got it.
Okay.
I'll just say, I think probably my like poor communication over the years, and when I say poor communication, like for me, my issue was for a long time was just talking about myself way too much. Like I would come in, especially in early 20s, like. I see this with a lot of college students too. So it's funny because now I'm like a old head, it seems like. And when I see it, I just see all of those things so much more apparently. But I always felt like I needed to prove myself. Like I was like, yeah, like, oh no, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And, and that's just like really off-putting. If you read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's obviously like one of the most popular books out there. But it's very, very good for communication. And yeah, dude, like people like when you listen to them, and you also learn a lot if you're willing to actually listen, and not even just for the communication benefit or like the networking benefit. That's one layer, but the real reward is when you actually care what people have to say. When you can, and that's a heart posture thing, and that takes time to develop, right? So those failures where I started to see relationships, like people were not, you know what I'm saying, like. I was not getting the relationship that I wanted out of people because I was just consumed with what I wanted to talk about and what I was interested in, and I didn't, So it took me actually just like having to be like, yo, like maybe I should, like maybe I'm not the only person, Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I'm not the only important person in this world. Yeah,
exactly, bro. And we think like that.
A couple things I learned in coaching to how to be a good communicator. I've done some of it in the podcast, but acknowledge and validate. So like whatever you say, I kind of acknowledge, touch base on some things you said.
Yeah.
Also, too, to someone listening, if you can hear, I intentionally, too, won't necessarily say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pause.
Yeah.
And it lets the other person who you're speaking to be like, oh, like they heard what I said.
Yeah.
Versus me be like, what question, thinking, what question am I going to ask next?
Yep.
I'm genuinely listening to you, like, I genuinely am listening to you, and that's why I'll add in some other questions, because I'm like, oh, like from a curious mind, like, oh, I want to know more about this, like what you said, and I'm not worried about flubbing words or saying something wrong. I'm gonna make mistakes. That's also like, I usually don't write things in pen. I write things in pencil a lot. as a reminder, like, it's okay to make mistakes. Because I can just go back and erase that. No big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, okay.
If you could erase one mistake, which would it be?
Oh my gosh.
Or did it make you who you are?
Yeah, I think all my mistakes have ultimately led me to. I mean, there's probably mistakes I'll go back and change just because they were unnecessary and I could have learned the lesson anyway. But yeah, I'll say I like how things have played out. I went through a lot of hard times, like a lot of people have, and. But part of that is just like gives me context for like how good my life is now, kind of like what you were talking about earlier financially, but like even just from my like the stability that I have like in my person, you know what I'm saying? Like I remember when I was just being pulled everywhere and just like so chaotic, so full of anxiety, so full of depression, like it was a nightmare kind of living in that mind. And so I'm very, very grateful for having a much more stable foundation now, and I protect that a lot. Like I really try to build the tools and stuff to stay strong in the face of adversity. So
I think it's smart because if you want to spread peace, you like be peace.
Yeah,
yourself. Yeah. And I think getting to a spot where I don't know about you, but I can handle quite a bit of chaos. Mm-hmm. Part of being an entrepreneur and jobs I've had in the past.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean I want to have to manage chaos all the time.
Yeah.
It's more preemptively you can see things are heading towards a chaotic direction, or things could be slightly chaotic. No, let's change some things.
Yeah.
Try to avoid it, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
When people talk about you years from now, mm-hmm. What do you hope they'll say?
I hope I will have earned the reputation of somebody that like loved people well and like was a good emblematic person of the Christian faith. Yes. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working on it. Work in progress.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe I won't be in sleeveless shirts.
I mean, oh yeah, no, I don't care. What's wrong with the sleeveless shirt?
I don't know, but we'll see 5 years from now if I feel like this was a good choice for the podcast.
I mean, I don't. So we're trying something new. A couple of my rapid fire random questions.
Okay, rapid fire random questions.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl, unfortunately.
Go-to hype song before competing or performing?
Well, probably something by Beam. Let's go with King Tut.
One food you could eat every day for the rest of your life?
Steak.
First job you ever had?
Technically, Finish Line. Shoe salesman.
Favorite place you've traveled to?
Tokyo.
Hidden talent or party trick?
I can do a wall spin. It's like a parkour move.
Something on your bucket list you haven't done yet?
Dude, I want to go see La Sagrada Familia in Spain. Look at just some like beautiful cathedrals.
I've been there. It's dope.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, bro, I'm jealous.
Barcelona's amazing. All right. Signature closing question. What's the one decision that you made that made the biggest difference in your life?
One decision that I made. You know what? I'm gonna give this one up to my wife. I'm just gonna give it up to my wife. We'll count that. Picking her was awesome. It's just so good to have somebody that like truly has your back, and that you spend the most time with them. So my life could be extremely chaotic at this stage, or have that kind of stability. And it requires work, but to kind of maintain that, right? The communication, the aligning on things, and having conversations like that. But yeah, picking somebody that I really rock with, shout out Aliki.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, thank you so much
Brother,
for coming on the podcast.
Man.
Really appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you on the next one.
Let's get it.
Thank you for watching the Jake Turner podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and to follow me on all my other social media platforms. The links are in the description below.